That's what I thought. All right.
Here we are.
So, this Historic Resources Commission meeting is now being called to order on January 14th at 9:38. And I'll do the roll call
Chair Phillips,
here.
Vice Chair Miriam, here. Commissioner Jenkins, here. Commissioner Orlando, here. Commissioner Swift,
Here.
Has,
This chair is weird.
yeah, we tried to boost it up for,
there's a
For
lot of
Ann.
chair dysfunction in this room.
It's okay.
My chair's great.
Has the commission all read the October 1st meeting minutes?
If you want to approve the agenda?
Thank you. Thank you. Kind of jumped over that, didn't I? Has everyone, has the commission all reviewed the agenda? Is there any changes, modifications to it? Okay, so is there a motion?
I move that we accept the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. All right, now down to number 3. And the October 1st minutes.
So amazing. It feels like it was a month ago.
Right.
I will move approval.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and before we vote, I just wanted to let the rest of the commissioners know that even though I was absent from the meeting, I did talk on the phone with Annie at the end of last week and went over it. So to find out what the status was on the different agenda items. All right, so voting on the motion to approve the October 1st minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed. And now down to agenda item number 4. So this was approved at the last meeting, a declaration of ex parte communications. Has any of the commissioners had any either verbal communications or written communications or any site visits that they would like to let the commission know about?
I went to a couple of site visits and I cried because they're just melting away.
Which ones were
There
they?
was a old dairy barn on the Coast Road up above the cement plant, and then one that Cal Poly is letting go to the weather, and that was up on Swanton Road.
So up in the Davenport area.
So do we, I don't mean to interrupt, but do we report things that, to any site, or is it sites that there's a project?
I think it's mostly sites that are in front of us to be
Oh, okay.
presented.
And if I'm going to do this again, I need somebody to go with me. I noticed that previously when this was done, which was about 1995, something like that, that 2 people went, and one of them was from the county. So,
When you say from the county, you mean from one of the
or
Yeah.
one of the staff members, yes.
one of the staff members? Okay. All right, so agenda topic number 5, public communications. Is there any topics? Yes,
Thank you, and Happy New Year to all of you.
thank you.
My name's Becky Steinbruner. Relevant to what Commissioner Orlando just said, when commissioners or members of the public do see these sorts of things, is it a possibility that your commission can ask the I guess it would be the county planning department or your agency to send a letter to the property owner and just remind them that it is an historic resource. It sort of fits with what you're going to be looking at later today and in future meetings, but I would hope that just a letter from your agency would help remind the property owner that it is a special resource for the county and a contributor to the public's enrichment. I also would like to ask if relevant to the meetings of last meeting, if there has been any action by staff to record your meetings. My good friend, Mr. Tanner, is here doing that today, but I would like to request that we follow up on Commissioner Miriam's suggestion to do that. Finally, I have met with Congressman Panetta about the Redmond Hirahara House. He's very interested, and I hope to be doing some work more with him, and hope that with his encouragement, the property owners will be more receptive to working with the public and perhaps with your commission to preserve that treasure in the Cockrell Valley. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are no consent items, no public hearing items, so we are now down to number 8A, new business. And we have amendments to our bylaws. So what was discussed and what it looks like here is that the meeting dates and times are suggested to be removed from the bylaws. Am I understanding that right?
Instead of having the actual meeting date, it just reference the months of January, July, October, et cetera. And the reason is to give the board a little bit more flexibility.
Sure.
For instance, today's slightly late because of the holidays.
Exactly.
What do we adopt proposed amendment?
So,
We need a motion to adopt the proposed amendment.
I think so, please.
Oh, do you want to take some vote?
Oh, yeah.
so is there any public comment?
Yes, thank you, Becky Steinbruner. I think that the current arrangement has been a big improvement over what it used to be, which was really irregular and hard to know when your commission was going to meet. So as a member of the public, it helps me to know that at the beginning of the month, I need to start looking for your agendas. I need to start contacting staff if I haven't seen it, or sending communication in a timely manner to your commission so that it can be included in your packet. So I would prefer that there be a date. It helps the public know more with certainty when to expect your body to meet and how to sort of honor the deadlines that the public has to communicate with you and get it into your packet for consideration at the meeting.
So it looks like what we do is then at the last meeting of each year, which would be October, we would set the dates for the next year. So that even though our bylaws don't have a set date, October let's say October of 2018, we would set the dates for all of 2019, so that, would that also be posted on, yeah, and posted on the planning department
And they're
website?
currently up on the website.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so that way then the public wouldn't need to be fishing around before every single meeting because it's up there. So I think that's workable because the bylaws aren't easily changed. And I know it's like our planning commission bylaws at the city of Watsonville, it's the same thing. It's, you know, they go to planning commission and they have to go to council to get approved. And so leaving that flexibility for us in this, but then also providing a mechanism to give the public, you know, some certainty of when the meetings will happen the next year is fine.
Would the meetings always be like, now they're always on Mondays? And that helped me a lot when I had a job. I could make sure I could, you know, work it out with my employer.
Yeah, they'd still be on the same day and time unless you had a special meeting or something.
Yeah,
So
okay.
still Mondays at 9:30.
Okay.
All right then, so it looks like there's two things that we're being asked to do. One, I think would be a motion to adopt the proposed amendment to Section 4 of the bylaws, which is that the months would be in the bylaws, but not a specific date. And then the second is a request to staff to then take our motion and submit it to the Board of Supervisors. So does someone want to make a motion?
I'll move approval.
Okay,
I'll second it.
okay,
Yeah, the
Oh.
staff- I'd say it longer. I move approval of the staff's recommendation.
okay.
Exactly.
So the motion would be to adopt the proposed amendment to Section 4 of the bylaws, meetings, in which the meeting months will be listed, but not the specific dates. All in favor? Aye. And two, the commission requests that staff submit this motion to the Board of Supervisors for their approval. All right. So number 8B, our goals.
Chair Phillips, I would just say that what Annie did here, and I know she didn't get to everything that she meant to do before she was called away, but the commission's current goals are provided here in the packet. And then I know Annie was going to report on kind of some of her staff goals as well. And I'm not sure how you want to handle this item because there isn't, I think it's more of a discussion item than anything. Which goals you want to kind of carry forward into 2019, or if there's any additional goals you would want to add. And I'll just say for Annie's staff goals, she spends, quite a bit of time reviewing applications and helping applicants, doing CEQA reviews, and helping people when they think they want to make a change to a historic property, and make, proposed improvements, what the process might be. So her goal is to kind of continue in that fashion for 2019, and as well as to support the commission kind of along the lines of what she's currently been doing. So.
Do we want to go through these and do a status of where we feel they are? Do we want to table this till the April meeting when Annie's back?
Well, I would like to discuss it.
Okay, then, let's go one by one. So,
Well, not only that, but just goals in general.
okay, so shall we go through these first and then do the general?
I don't know, because, I mean, I just want,
Do you want to do goals in general to kind of get a framework?
well, let's go through these first, go ahead. And
Okay.
then-
All right, so, we, so most of these are last year.
That's a point. Most of these go back numerous years.
Yeah.
So we should make a note of that, maybe.
Well, I think maybe that's, as you say, then let's discuss how we feel about it and where we feel the status is.
Yeah.
So I know the first one, applications for demolition and partial demolition. That first one, we did start discussing last year. And there was research on it, both by a subcommittee, and by the planning department. Where do we feel this is? Did this ever get kind of tied up, or is this still being researched and discussed?
Well, I think it's later on our agenda for today, at least a big step forward.
Okay,
You think we made a step forward?
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
Turn on the
All right, so it's still being discussed and researched. Number 2, cleaning up the inventory. I know we're still working on that. And that also is on today's agenda.
This one, we're going to discuss this today?
Yeah, 9B, review current watch list of properties. And
Okay. That'll,
And I consider looking at what we've got, cleaning up what's already on the inventory as well as watch list kind of.
But also, was it our last meeting that Amy gave us a template to follow?
Yes, and I thought we ended up getting one, or maybe it was just me.
And the glitch, it seemed to me, was that she said, if we, as commissioners, find that there's something wrong in the inventory, it doesn't really help for us to say there's something wrong with this DPR. That if we have a specific date or something, then staff might be able to change it. But
Right.
overall, there isn't money or resources to actually make changes to any of the DPRs that we identify as being.
Right.
So that leads me to feel like we don't really have a way. We really can't clean up.
I was thinking, what did she say about ownership? Because ownership has changed, I'm sure, on several properties.
Oh,
Is that,
I think so.
so is that something they would be able to fix?
But see, I don't know. I mean, she said a date, if we wanted to change the date of
Yeah,
construction.
I don't know that, we would be constantly changing ownership.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like the way that,
And basically,
Yeah.
I think she was saying there isn't staff time and there isn't funding for consultants to make the changes we
At
might
this time.
identify. Yeah. So I'm thinking, so that puts us kind of at a stalemate.
yeah.
We can't really accomplish that. So I don't know how much energy we want to put into it.
Well, I think the last time, now I gotta bring up a memory bank that's 30 years ago, but I think the last time it was a consultant,
Right.
RB somebody, anyway, that came over from San Jose and went with a Karen McNally, who lived in Davenport, and went around and looked at all the historical buildings. And I interpreted this as going around and doing the same thing again and determining whether there was changes in the buildings. And maybe also changes to the ownership.
I'm just looking at it as not only, verifying that this is building still exists, and has it been altered, and looking at the DPRs and saying, some of them are garbage.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry,
See, the DPRs need to be changed, but that's a long process.
Yeah.
And so, sort of what I was going through and saying was sort of, this needs to be changed, this is inaccurate, these conclusions are not good, for the,
Really old.
yeah, I mean, if you have a process of DPR, a lot of it is, part of it is looking at the history, compiling the history of the house, and if that hasn't been done well, then why do you have it? The other thing, of course, it describes the kind of house and what condition it's in, and that's the other thing that would have changed is the condition of the building. So, I think it's very useful for us because we do have some knowledge of the houses in our area to flag the ones that aren't doing so well. However, it appears that there is nothing
To do with that.
That's right. We can all sit around and look at each other's notes, but otherwise there's nothing that's going to happen. At least anytime soon.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and if I could just add in, I know that to have a consultant come and help clean up the inventory would cost, over $100,000.
That's right.
So, unless we
maybe-
find a grant.
Well, that is a thought. We can
It is
apply for a
thought.
grant.
We
yeah.
could,
And
yeah.
I think that's what we used to do. Terry Fisher was very good when she was an architect
Mhm.
on the commission, and she was every year, okay, we'll apply for a grant.
Oh, cool.
And we
Okay.
got some. I remember,
so the commissioners themselves fill out the grant process?
I think
yeah,
they
there
work
would be a
with the
grant available.
county,
I don't
yeah.
know if there are any. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what I was thinking is maybe we can keep this as a goal and readdress it as
Just change it to.
investigate
Yeah.
ways to, certainly we're not the only community in this boat.
Right.
What other options are there for cleaning up the inventory and how can we approach it? What can we do? So we can keep it on as a goal and investigate what we can do.
So do we need to be clarifying things with Annie?
Probably.
Okay. And do the rest of you get emails from, I believe it's the California
Yes.
Preservation
Yeah.
Foundation, in which they list grants?
Yeah.
Okay.
They send
Well,
that.
I think there was a time of year, and it might have been with the CLT program, but there was a period every year where you could apply for some grants.
Mhm.
And it was back in the days when there was a lot more funding. Before one of those crashes, But,
Okay.
So,
So we'll ask for other options about how to clean up the inventory, kick around the idea.
I think we could just keep discussing it,
Yeah.
and keep looking, keep investigating for, let's not just say, oh, we can't do anything.
Right.
Because even though we can't do anything now, and maybe there is a way to do something,
Yeah,
so.
that's
so
right.
clarify what is really reasonable to do. Reasonable for us to do now, what would be something that we could do in the future with these circumstances? What can we do? What is under the planning department's
Yeah, look at-
responsibilities? So
Well,
everything
there's-
is a lot more clear cut.
There's limitations
Mhm.
that we, the staff has got limited time, there's limited money. All these
Exactly.
things, so in spite of all that, what can we do? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So do we want to have that as part of our agenda for the April meeting?
Well, I think we'll probably have a list of suggested goals that we'll continue to discuss.
Yeah, I would suggest that we move our timing towards maybe, it says July 2018, let's move that to July 2019? I mean, or
Okay.
ongoing or something, maybe just ongoing.
Just, yeah, let's make it ongoing, because this is something that,
Well, I mean, I think it's important for us to look at how we're doing with goals, because otherwise we're sort of floating.
yeah.
And if it really feels good to say, we did make progress.
We
You know,
did, and-
we accomplished this, you know.
You know.
This is one thing.
Yes.
But, you know, once we leave here, we all kind of are on our own, and
Yes.
I know all of us are busy with other things, and I don't want to be wasting my time doing something and then finding out, oh, well, that's not the way it's done, or that we do that
Or
was it for you to do, or,
You know, and-
you know, or that's something that'll be down the road, and,
Well, there's also, you don't want the feeling that you've spent hours researching something and then it's going to get stuck in dark door, or, you know,
Yeah.
a dark file somewhere. On the other hand, it might be useful to go ahead and do it if at some point things will be looked at,
Yeah.
or there will be,
Mhm.
you know. We don't want to waste our time, but,
no.
but we don't mind spending time if something can be accomplished.
I wonder if maybe at least trying to nail down what that grant period is might be helpful.
Or what grants even are available.
Right.
Because I know Annie sees those too, because she's commented on them a couple times, those emails and what's in it, and there's training and so on.
I'm trying to remember, because I've been on and off the commission since 1989, on and off. And so it was in one of those periods, when Terry Fisher was the chair, that every year, I think she worked with Sharon McCormick, every year they would say, okay, it's that time again, and they get together and they'd apply for a grant. And I don't know how often, or if ever, really.
Yeah. Because I know Annie had mentioned the grants, and she said, well, we'll look into it and see if we can apply for a grant. But it's always an issue of the time that the staff has.
Well, also.
So I didn't realize that we could do it.
Well, maybe that's what we need clarification.
In coordinate, I think you still have to work through
Yeah.
the planning,
county,
yeah, yeah.
but if we as a group volunteered our time to help fill out that application.
And do as much as we can.
Yeah. I think
Well,
that's-
maybe somebody could start by just researching what grants are available, what their deadlines are, and start there.
I think that's been happening, and I, my memory isn't so good, but, I think the grants might have been for a specific topic.
Yeah. It was
And
the
Annie
planning
would
grant,
say-
yeah.
These are the topics that we could apply, and there's usually none that really fit. They don't fit what we need, so we don't apply. But we can ask her, and she probably could remember whether we've done it before.
So maybe you want to put it on your next agenda to talk
So for
about it.
April?
Yeah.
Well, as long
Instead
as
of
we're going to
waiting till
discuss
July.
goals ongoing, why not?
Yeah. So I guess, yes, so for the April agenda, number 2, we want to change, I guess July 2018 was when we started this process, but we want to have it designated as ongoing with no targeted deadline. And at the April meeting, we want to have an agenda item on discussion of inventory, cleanup, and potential grants that might be available for us.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on that subject?
I think that sounds good.
Okay. Number 3 is continuing to work on the watch list properties, and that's 9B here, and we have some.
Is that the list?
um,
That's not the, in fact, I got an email, but
So.
Oh, here we go, yeah.
Yeah. And that's definitely an ongoing item.
I have one thing to say.
And didn't, she sent out a form, was it a blank
Yes, yes,
DPR?
yes, yes. She, and that's what we used. This is the form
Okay,
that we used. And I just wanted to add a note on one of my watch list buildings. It's the Henry Mello House.
Maybe we should discuss that when we get to that agenda.
Oh, that's a good
Tonight
idea.
be.
Okay. Okay.
all right, so, then number 4 is discussing potential approaches to addressing demolition by neglect. And, we're still discussing that. Is that part of falling under 9A? Is hardship part of neglect? Why they're neglecting it was due to
Yes.
hardship?
It's, we're on number 4, yeah.
So we'll be discussing that on 9A. So that's kind of at this point. And then ongoing, and then we have here revisiting the Mills Act program, and this is considering 2019. And I know you did a lot of research, you did a presentation.
Yeah, I think what I remember from number 5 on the goals is that the county staff would have time in 2019 to consider implementation or to revisit the idea of implementing a Mills Act program based on the research that's already been done.
So is that something we want to have at a future meeting for Annie to report on? Since it's up to the county to go forward now?
We're thinking of looking at the goals more than once
Yeah.
during the year. So we could just keep this on the list.
Well, at this point, it says here that considering the cost to county staff time to develop and implement. So to me, I interpreted that as Annie letting us know what she sees in her department is when that time might be available.
But-
Spring, summer, fall, so.
Oh, okay.
So do we want to have her talking to us on an April or July?
I just thought if this was on our goals list when it came up
I just,
next, we could just ask her. If-
And then I guess my question would be, are we going to be looking at this goals list at every meeting? So it would be reviewed and statused.
That might be a good idea.
yeah.
I mean, why
Yeah,
not
good
go
idea.
if you can't visit it?
Okay,
I mean, probably a lot of the time we won't.
You can have it as a regular agenda item, I suppose.
okay. Would you let her know?
Just to check in
That's
with
not a
staff.
motion or anything, is it?
I don't think so.
Okay. Then-
But I will say for the items that need additional staff time, we're kind of in the same boat we were before. We're in a huge work program. The sustainability update that's been delayed and needing to put staff attention to that. So for this one, it kind of fits into, probably Amy's not going to have much time, more time than she already puts into it for historical resources, unfortunately. And the same with kind of demo by neglect items. And also I get the sense from the planning director, she doesn't see that the board would support many changes like that right now. That's kind of the sense I'm getting. Although I think we wanted to say that the board, if the commission wanted to take it on themselves to approach the board or send them some kind of communication, because you need more staff time, that's an option too. You know, those of us who love historic resources feel really bad about it, but we're just in this kind of boat of having a big work program that we keep pushing off and not getting to. We've got to get through it. You know, we have to get through those board mandated items,
Right.
hopefully this year,
No,
next
we
year.
do understand, and that was, I think, one of the items that was discussed, and I think Annie made a presentation on how her time is spent, and
Yeah.
we are not her priority, we are one of several other.
I think for us, for me,
She loves you guys.
No, we totally, and we love Annie, we love her. But as you say, the Board of Supervisors mandated jobs and work are her priorities, and we appreciate all, because we know she does give us a lot of time.
Yeah, if we can get through as a staff, we can get through some of those items, and granted they're big items, then hopefully things will free up. You know, Annie will have more time, and other staff will have more time to support the other things that Annie does. You know, we all try to work together. So maybe if you have it on your goals and you're discussing goals, she can just kind of update you on where she is on her ability to.
Yeah, and I think if
Fine.
we, having it as a regular agenda item, then we can be moving through these much quicker.
well, and also, it's just for us to keep track.
Exactly, and that way, when
It's like,
it's,
these are the things that are important to us, and we don't want to lose them. We don't-
no, and
Otherwise, you know, the bell goes off. What's that game, the boardwalk, where you shoot the duck and it turns direction? Like that. Bing! And we go this way.
no, I think if we were looking at them at each meeting and going through them instead of just at the end of the year when it's,
Right.
what are the
Yeah.
goals?
I just
I think
think
that
it's
it's a much
important.
more fresher
Just
and,
keep it, yeah.
yeah, and instead of discussing each one so much, we'll be up to date
Right,
on all of them.
right.
All right,
So we're still talking about them all, right?
Okay.
yes.
We're talking about them all.
So, now 8C and,
Wait a minute.
Yep.
Did we finished? Oh, okay.
so 8C slides, but I imagine that, oh,
Wait a minute, we haven't finished discussing goals.
oh.
We haven't?
No,
No, we haven't gotten to 5?
I have some ideas for new goals.
Oh.
We don't
Oh,
have to
okay.
have always the same ones, do we?
Well, let's have some variety here.
Well, no, just things to think about, because, not that we're stuck in the mud.
Oh, how impressive.
Tight up.
No, I actually, the Historic Preservation Commission for the City of Santa Cruz has 7 members, and they're all, a lot of them are new, and they're very dedicated and energetic and focused. And so, a friend of mine is on it and got in charge of goals. So he wrote, they got a subcommittee and they worked on his goals, and you know, he wrote up this fancy thing. And so I asked him for it. So can I look at it? So I took some of the things that I thought, you know, we could just think about. And one of the things that they do is review and suggest changes to their website organization and content in order to make the site more user-friendly for current potential owners of historic resources. So,
Now, is that the city,
yeah, this is the city
it's
of
the
Santa.
city website?
Yeah,
on-
that's
on
their
this-
goal is
Okay.
to make the city website more user-friendly. And I don't know how often I've looked at our website, but I did, and I could see that part of it doesn't work. I mean, you know, you click on it, it doesn't go anywhere. So that might be something that we keep on a list for, you know, what can we do with our website to make it, or, you know, to have facts that address the most frequently asked questions and to provide clarity on issues for the public. And I think
It's like
ours
more
is-
info on the website.
yeah, there you go. And I think ours was done, not really reaching. Susan Lehman eons ago.
Yeah.
And she provided very good historic information. So I think it's a pretty solid website,
Mhm.
but we just haven't looked at it.
Yeah, we need to have it updated. I mean, this
Or-
is 2019.
Yeah, well, I don't know, that'd be fine. But I thought, well, that's something we could have as a goal, is kind of
Yeah.
check it. Okay.
Mhm.
Then they created a subcommittee to expand public outreach during events. No, to expand public outreach events during Preservation Month. And I know, work with Museum of Art and History on landmark plaques.
Yeah,
Yeah, we do the
And
certificate.
that's one thing that
yeah.
we've done. But I thought we might have that as a goal, kind of Historic Preservation Month activities. And what the city's doing is they're thinking of, educating the public on why preservation and why does it matter. And so they're thinking of having presentations co-sponsored with the Public Library, Genealogy Society, and expand the number of banners downtown, design posters. That's a little,
They are, wow.
yeah. But see, this maybe just
Isn't Don that?
Don Lawrence,
Larson?
yeah.
Ah,
And it's a Joe Michael act.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't, I thought of him when he said that.
they
Yeah,
have a
wound
lot
up.
of time.
Yeah. Nothing like having librarians. Librarians are good, right? Yeah. And then last one was explore potential grant funding.
Hey,
You what?
Grants again.
Grant funding, but
Explore grant
what they want to
funding,
do is update and correct walking tour brochures and migrate the content to an interactive virtual environment format. Which is a great phrase, isn't it?
awesome.
Yeah. But anyway, such has been done in San Luis Obispo and other cities. But emphasize how preservation contributes to heritage tourism.
Didn't something like that get started just a few years ago?
Oh,
They were doing different sections.
That's the
You know what I'm talking?
RTC, yeah, they did the visioning at the different possible rail stations. They had the owl and you could look in it
Mhm.
and envision what the intersection would look like in the future
Ooh.
versus now.
Well, this I thought was a walking tour on your
Oh,
on your
sorry.
phone, and so it would be a certain area, and it seemed to me
Yeah.
they were doing like West Cliff and
Oh God, what was that? Yes.
you know
What
and,
was it
and
now?
well, Capitola has that.
Yeah.
You can go to a site and stand there, and on your on your phone, it'll show you what it used to look like,
Oh, wow.
and then it shows you. Then you can take a picture right at the same
Yeah.
spot, and so you get the past and present, and then it gives you a little.
yeah.
And Capitola has a good walking tour. I thought, for county areas, it'd be just nice if we sort of made a list of
Yeah.
walking tours and, who has one. SoCal doesn't, Capitola does.
Norm does, Norm does have
Yeah. Live oak.
Yeah, I know Live Oak,
Yeah.
Norm. And then I asked John Hibble if Aptos had one. He said, we could.
Yeah, well, I'm
That's
thinking of
one
the
thing we could
valley.
even do on the website is just provide links
Yeah. that
to
would- to
digital.
a different one. Anyway, I thought that's something else. that
We're
we could
giving
look into.
IT.
Now, maybe
All
it
this
isn't
work
intentional,
now.
but there's a lot of people doing walking, and they've already got their walking tours set up and printed.
Yeah, well, this is what
So
we're
you might-
thinking of.
Is this what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
It'd be just to know about where they are in the, does Watsonville have one?
We got a couple.
In the valley, I guess,
Might-
Felton or Boulder Creek, because they have historic homes and
Yeah.
things and walking around downtown areas and
Well,
things.
people, as we have an aging population who's interested. I mean, people come to Capitola who are older, they don't want to go to the water. They don't, they don't want to spend all their time at the beach. They
Well,
want
that's why
to-
that partnership, museums partnership brochures was so good.
Yeah.
You
Well, then we
know?
had that years ago, Museum of Art and History had a consortium of all the different groups,
Mhm,
and they put out a big map,
mhm.
but we don't want to do anything too complicated.
No, and I love the brochure from that partnership because it was all the museums in the county
Yeah.
and where they were
Yeah.
with a map and all that, but I couldn't find anybody to take it over. and I just couldn't do it anymore by myself.
Well, that's it. That's it. That's
You know,
what I was-
that's it.
Yeah. So the things that I'm just throwing
Yeah.
out now are just things we can think about, and the amount of time we put into it is limited.
Right.
But
And
the
it's
other
always
thing,
money.
the thing that I thought about is, I thought, well, here we have guys like Joe and Don Rhodes and all these people that are lots of energy. My goal has always been to have a presentation from someone like Leslie Dill of Archives and Architecture on, to have her provide a training on the application of the Secretary of Interior standards, which is what the museum, which is what the Historic Preservation Commission in Santa Cruz did in 2012, 2013, many years ago. But now, this woman named Jessica, and I can't remember her last name, she has worked for Dillon Associates. So maybe since she's on the Historic Preservation Commission, for Santa Cruz, for the city of Santa Cruz, we could get her to come and give us a presentation.
Yeah, that would be part of our training.
Yeah, it's just a
Yeah.
little local training. It just that doesn't involve a whole. And then Joe's big goal is to. There's a book called Every Structure Tells a Story.
Right.
I all know that.
Does he want to
Yes,
update
yes.
Huh?
it? Does he want to update it?
He does. Yeah,
Yay!
yeah. He wants to.
Yeah.
He's working on updating it, and he's given a few of the other commissioners a tour of the records department and how to do. And I thought, wouldn't that be great if we
Yeah.
could get him to come and give us we could just go down to the second floor
Yeah.
and he could show us how to research properties.
Yes.
I mean, I'm
The
used to know how to do it,
research,
but they move things around
It's
so you
been
can't
many
find
years.
stuff.
Yeah.
And they change how they do it. So it would be, maybe we could ask him to.
Well, that's certainly, that kind of information would certainly come in handy with the watch list and updating the inventory and all that.
And if it's educating us, and then we can educate, then we can say to people, this is how you do it,
So I have a
I'm
question.
sorry, can I just have, was that Joe?
Michael,
M-I-C-H-A-L.
M-I-C-H-A-L-A-K.
So would those be considered special meetings if we were all going to be in one place?
Or would that be a training? Would that be considered training?
Or could we have that as a part of our meeting? Like, we have a
Oh,
shorter
okay.
meeting and then.
Go
this is the-
downstairs?
Yeah, just go downstairs. And so it's like a 40-minute or.
I think if all of you are together, it's a meeting. I don't know, do you do trainings all together as well? I
Yes.
don't know, does she notice it as a meeting?
Yeah, she's had someone come in
Yeah.
here and they've done it, or we've gone to a conference or something.
Right.
So an
However she
offsite for
handles
training.
that, we handle it the same way.
Okay. It depends on the money.
Yeah.
The money issue, if there's enough for us to go to the offsite or,
She was just asking me about budget, in fact, and I was thinking along the same lines that maybe the commission wants a regular goal about keeping up on your training, because I know that you do that every year. So that seems like a goal, and then you can
Hey,
check that
that's an
box
easy
off.
goal, yeah.
That's an easy one.
Yeah.
But yes, there is money in the budget for your training, and I know Annie's starting to look at what that might be for 2019.
I did see where the California Preservation found their annual conference is down in Palm Springs. Where, wasn't it last year, it was in Palo Alto?
It was.
Yeah.
Stanford.
So that was a lot more doable.
In a way for me that tapping into local talent.
Yeah, I like that idea for
is,
this year.
is something that we can really use. And since Santa Cruz has gung-ho group,
Let's
you know.
feed off of it, yeah.
yeah, maybe it could benefit us.
Yes.
Come on over. And
No, it always helps when you can, work together and not reinvent the wheel and
well,
have,
that's it. And they
You know.
can help us, so we can just.
Yeah. So yeah, I like the idea of having Dill or Jessica come in and provide us with, in-house training, and then maybe doing the records research
Records,
training.
it would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
Hands-on.
Yeah.
Of course, once I start doing that stuff, you in the records room, like, I don't wanna leave.
Yeah, I forgot how, and I need to remember because I've been.
Okay. Next, what's next? Is that all the
Okay.
goals you
That
got?
was it.
Oh, okay.
What?
Chair, do you want to maybe have a motion to direct staff to update the goals and then come back with a
Public
We have
comment too.
the public.
a strike through and a
I'd like
non-version?
to say something first, and sometimes I don't know where I should say it, but I'll do it now so that we don't forget. May the 18th, I was going to, thank you. May the 18th, we're going to have a Santa Cruz History Day. It'll be at Capitola and the Jade Street Park. Have any of you been to these?
No.
No, what, say it again, what is it?
A Santa Cruz History Day.
Oh, this is the, I heard it about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I found it extremely interesting. It'll be from 1 to 5, and it's free. And if you want to, maybe we should think of getting a table ourselves and do a little publicity. Just a thought, since you're talking about things like
Being
this.
more public engaging.
Yeah.
I think we'd have to find a topic that we could,
Well,
I don't know how the group,
all right.
I don't know how
The
to-
last time that they had this, the Genealogy Society took up a whole wall of the school, Loudon Nelson,
Mhm.
and just put in their computers and had everybody there to teach people how to find their family. It was, I mean, you couldn't get near the tables
Yeah,
if there were
you
so
couldn't.
many people.
yeah.
And Davenport, meaning me, we had a wall in which we had pictures, up on, what do you call them? Well, anyway, never mind. There was all kinds of pictures. I had the jail bars sitting up in front of us. We had videos running behind us, and it was simple to put up, believe it or not.
Is it possible, going on what the Genealogy Society said, to, if people were to log into the planning department with the address of their property, to find out a bit of history? Because I know you do have titles in there, and sometimes the titles go way, way back. And it says, this person had it from here to here, and then here to here, and then here to here. I know on my property, it goes back quite a
You
bit.
can look that up.
And I know, being at the museum, people would come in and they'd want to know about the house, the house that they bought. Is that something that they would end up seeing some information that they didn't know about their property? Type of thing, is what I'm thinking, or is it like, no, it's just very bland public?
Well, it's all public records. I think it's not really a historical database that has
Right.
like really interesting stuff. But I think you can look back at the ownership and through 1979 on the computer, and before that, I believe that's the year you have to kind of go down to the record room and flip through books
And
and
it's
stuff.
hard copy,
Yeah,
because mine goes back to close to 1900.
yeah.
Um,
But I don't think it's really set up to be kind of.
So that would be
super cool, interesting
worthwhile
stuff.
for the public, okay. I was
Yeah.
just curious.
Yeah, if you wanted to just know kind of deed changes, that kind of thing, like, oh, look, they own this property back in 1900, you can do that, but, the cool stuff that's not really in there
Okay.
as much.
Well, anyway, you can think about it if you want to.
This is what day? It's May.
It's
18th.
May the
May
18th, and let's see, I had it on my calendar
Jade
here
Street.
just a minute ago. Anyway,
And what's it called?
a 1 to 5.
Santa Cruz History Day.
Yeah, and you would come in the morning and put up your display.
But it's Santa Cruz.
Yeah,
At Jade Street
this is
Park?
going to be at the Jade Street Park in Capitola.
Jade Street.
Yeah.
But it's called the Santa Cruz History Day.
Yeah,
So it's about Santa Cruz history.
well, it's about the county.
Then why isn't it the Santa Cruz County History Day?
Well, because somebody didn't think of it, that's all.
Maybe they didn't want to
That's the
separate
problem.
city and
That's
county.
always been the problem.
Another idea might be is if we partnered with somebody else, another group or whatever.
Like the Santa Cruz Historic Preservation
And
Committee.
basically explain who we are, because a lot of people don't know we exist, don't know what the inventory is. You know, just as a point of it introducing.
But it would mean that a number of us would be sitting at a table from 1 to 5.
That's true.
That's
And people would
true.
come by and they'd say, "Who are you?" And we would go over and over and over.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
have to be prepared for that. You have to be prepared for that.
Well, you have to be.
Well,
And it's nice if you have photographs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
anyway,
We could ask around. and
yeah,
see.
we can discuss this further. All right, so let's,
Wait, you've got,
oh, and if
Public
you want
comment.
to get in contact with Frank Perry, that's the person who's doing it, he's in charge.
okay. All right, public comment.
Thank you, Becky Steinbruner. I'd like to volunteer to be at that table, and I'll bet Ross Gibson would too. Anyway, thanks for letting us know about that. That would be a fun event, and I think it would be very interesting for members of the public to see that big, thick binder that is the county's inventory. I had no idea such a document existed. So that would be kind of a fun thing to have there at the table. I want to go back to your discussion of goals. Oh gosh, there's so much here. First of all, in talking about money, why don't we just ask the Board of Supervisors for money? That's what everybody else does. And the county's new strategic plan has elements in it that are supposed to value historic and cultural resources preservation in the county. It's in the strategic plan. And in the big scope of the county's budget, $100,000 is nothing. So I would like to see this commission, with the help of staff, really put together a letter requesting money. And now's the time to do it, because the budgets are being formulated now for approval by the board in June, but it's happening now at the departmental level. So I would like to see that happen for the county's historic preservation efforts. As you've said, there is tremendous interest in the public for historic issues. When the 220-year founding of the Via de Branciforte event was held, there were over 100 people there. And when I put up a history of agriculture in Aptos at the Aptos Library, librarians told me it was one of the most popular exhibits generating public interest that they had seen. So people really do want to know more about the history and the richness of their area, and one has only to look at Old Town Sacramento, Old Town Folsom, that generates a lot of people coming in because they want to see that, they want to learn more. This county has a very large population of homeschoolers, and those are rich events, let me tell you, as a homeschooling mom, to attend, and we've got to help our youth learn about the history and appreciate it, or they won't value it. And we will all continue to visit the historic structures and cry, because we're the only ones that care. So that was one comment I had. I also want to ask, I know that this commission did approve an historic consultant or architect to have on call. I remember that happening last year. How can we put that to use to either help with the cleanup of the inventory or a training, something like that? Because that person is on call and, to my understanding, is being paid a certain amount for being on call. And I'm not sure about that, but there was money in that picture. I really appreciate all that you're doing. And I would like to ask that you take the reins more. Because I go to county meetings and I know the intense pressure that all of planning staff is under right now because of the housing crisis. And that's where all of the attention and energy are going. And sadly, the Board of Supervisors are in that same swiftly moving boat too. And unless good people like you speak up and remind them about the importance of also funding historic preservation, it's going to go off the radar just because that's how those things are, unless people keep advocating for those important things. Let's see, I also want to suggest that maybe creating small projects that could be done by student interns in the course of a semester, like these wonderful ideas Commissioner Swift had for a website. That's right up those young people's alley. And they can probably whip it out with some guidance. Students at UCSC or Cabrillo could really help out, and just even small things. But if the commission could develop small packages in planning, is called shovel-ready projects. I don't know what you would want to call it. I don't think we'd want to call it shovel-ready for preservation, but but something to that effect that could be accomplished by a student intern or a team working on a student project, maybe even a senior thesis. And finally, I want to say that I had a conversation with an historic architect named Corey Jimenez that went to UCSC in architecture, but her love and passion is in historic preservation. She teaches historic architecture at the University of Nevada in Reno. And we were talking about the Redmond Hero House. She was shocked that Santa Cruz County does not have a Mills Act. And so I really would like to advocate for that happening. Commissioner Miriam, thank you for that good work that you're doing, and I'd like to see this commission not put that off, but rather put that forward, because that's what your property owners of these derelict properties would be interested in addition to some of the things you're looking at today. Oh goodness, there's one more thing, but I think I'm out of time. But thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. I don't think there was anything for motion, so 8C were slides from that Joan Rishaw had brought to the county as a donation from the 1989 earthquake. When I talked to Annie on the phone, she was going to show some of them, and I asked her what area in the county they were from, because she felt that they might be better donated to a museum, but not knowing what the photographs, what area they were from.
So maybe you want to put that on your next agenda. Annie was called away very suddenly and didn't get to do some of the things I think she was going to do, and didn't make me aware that part of this was to show the slides. I thought it was all about just what you want to do with them. Did you want to donate them to a particular receptacle or
Exactly,
not,
so
yeah.
if they're from a very specific area, you know, if it's from across the county, that will help us.
Okay, so
So-
we'll put it on the next agenda?
Please.
Okay.
You know, having things like that, I think, are valuable for museums.
Mhm. Oh,
My-
yeah.
My mom went around, she dealt with the grief of the 1989 earthquake by going all over Washington with her camera.
Ah,
100 pictures.
Wow.
And I gave them to PBHA. But they're not, they're not great. But still, it shows
Sure.
that she got
Yeah.
the Masonic Lodge going down, and Force
Mhm.
Department building being demolished.
and the thing is, a lot of times families and people end up giving pictures and documents to some museum, far away.
You're right.
And like of our trains, and they're up at the Sacramento Train Museum. It's like, no, we need to be having them here.
Yeah, keep them local.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, then moving on to old business. Annie was gonna give an oral report. And so I'm not sure if that should be, this is about the City of Santa Monica criteria for certificate of economic hardship.
Yeah, I think we can still speak to that a little bit.
Okay,
We did have a couple of great conversations anyway.
oh, great.
Okay, so in your packet, they're not really paginated, but item 9A, exhibit A is your current list of requirements for a demolition application. Hang on.
It's
Plus-
proposed, yeah.
Well, it's, so
Yeah.
it's the first 5 items are the current, I
Okay.
think, and then 6 on are the additions that Annie thought would be the good takeaways from the City of Santa Monica list, which
Right.
is next, which is item.
So you said the
E.
first 5 is what's currently approved and what someone would have to follow.
Right,
Right.
right.
Okay.
And then item 6 is the additional documentation with sub-items A through N that would need to be provided to really show the economic hardship part of it.
And then I'm guessing in the Santa Monica, what is it? C through E, we would have to have an ordinance change to be able to implement those, I'm guessing. Because they're the role of the commission in determining, or how to determine whether it's an economic hardship or not.
Yeah, I don't think, Annie didn't really address those items. I think what her thought was that the commission has control over what's on that application, and you can
Right.
add number 6 on there.
But as far as how we make that determination, that would probably have to be done by ordinance. I mean, or to change our ordinance.
I think you're probably right.
Well, I think this is a huge step forward. And I appreciate Annie's,
Diligence.
yeah, work on this.
But here's what this means.
Well, I thought this was a lot of very good information for somebody who is considering demolition by neglect and, and then being faced with, well, no, you have to justify and provide all this information on both sides.
Yeah, it'll make it much harder for someone to come to the county and just say, my building is termite ridden and I want to build this mansion instead.
It definitely will have them stop and give consideration to what it is that they want to do.
It's really complicated to fill out.
Yeah.
It's nothing that they're going to be able to pull this together and whip it out in 30 minutes.
Right.
No, but anyone is gonna or should be, looking at the cost for demolition and new construction anyway when they're developing a property or redeveloping a property. And I'm just thinking back to the Schwann Lake House years and years ago, where if we had had this criteria, things would have maybe been very different because we had a non-professional claim that the house was termite ridden. And that's why, that was one of the real main reasons that they said, okay.
No, we've got, I know in Boulder Creek, there's a property owner. He owns a historic livery stable, and he's using it for storage, and it's red tagged. But he doesn't want to put any money into it because he says it's going to be way too expensive to fix. So he simply uses it as storage for his business, because his business is a grocery store. And so because nobody's in it, living or long periods of time, it's just in and out. And I know Barbara was very concerned about it by neglect getting further and further along. And it's still standing, but there's absolutely no effort to try and stabilize it.
Termites are boring you.
So, but I like that it's from what I can read, it appears to cover both personal properties and income properties. Seems to cover both to all situations. Can anyone else see anything missing? Any situations?
Could it be applied to the amendment?
Yes.
Yay.
So if we approve this and get it in, because they have not asked for any,
Right.
so this would be, it would be in the books.
Yes. Essentially, my understanding is that this would be part of the application. So anyone who would come to the county and say, I want to tear down my building, and it's historically listed, they would have to provide the county with all this information.
So if we make a motion to approve this, recommendation that the Board of Supervisors approve this,
Or do they need to? It just
No.
they don't?
Your
No.
commission has the ability to decide
Okay.
what the application requirements are. So, kind of embedded in the last sentence, is it's recommended that your commission request staff to update the list as provided to your commission for future applications for proposed demolition of the historic resource.
So how long would it take before it would be considered effective?
I think it would go into effect immediately.
Immediately? So,
Yeah, there's no
what would
appeal or
happen-
anything on
What
this.
would happen if, let's see, an example is an old barn. Some years ago, the owner said that he would be happy to restore it if the county gave him money to do so. And it would cost $25,000.
That's cheap.
Now, what's he going to do when he looks at this and sees all the paperwork that he's got to do?
Well, then he might consider that $25,000 isn't so bad.
It's what?
Isn't so bad.
Well, that was a couple of years ago. It's
Yeah.
probably $50,000 now. But anyway,
Maybe the idea, he's gonna look at this, and this is what you do if you're gonna demolish.
Right.
So he said he would consider restoring if somebody paid him.
yeah.
So now he can consider what it will cost him if he wants to demolish.
Okay,
So he might decide that maybe he wants to restore it.
okay. Well, I don't know, he's a pretty stubborn old. I just wanted to know what would, because that was to be the question that would be asked of me, is how would this affect someone with that type of attitude?
Well, it's gonna give him a lot more work if he wants to get a permit to tear it down. It's not gonna be as easy as it is now. There will be quantifiable information that will be given to the county and our board to determine whether it's actually a hardship for him to restore it and keep it or not.
Now, for someone in that situation, and the Redmond House, I'm thinking of the livery stable up by me, you have somebody come and they say, okay, I'm gonna follow the rules, I'm gonna get a permit, I wanna get this torn down. And they look at this and they're like, well, yeah. And so they don't do nothing, and eventually, just by force of weight, gravity, it collapses.
Right.
Is there any,
No. Not yet.
I think we're back to
Yeah. We're back to,
discussions
a
of
future.
demolition by neglect.
What I think this does is that, this was one of our goals.
yes, and I
One
think
of our
that's
other
great.
goals is the Mills Act. That would help property owners. And then the other thing is demolition by neglect, which would help preservationists and
Mhm.
help
Okay.
preserve these.
I know we're almost to the end of the agenda,
Yeah.
but if I could take a 3-minute break.
That'd be great because I need to use the ladies. I
Okay,
need to use the ladies too.
all right, we're going to adjourn the meeting at 10:55, and we'll come back at
10:58.
11 o'clock.
It's the Board of Supervisor meeting, we'll start the clock running down.
Somehow publicized more.
What's that?
Various walking tours that are offered on a,
Yeah.
because I know when I was working at the museum, because I was the only staff, doing the publicity, getting it out for every historical talk, getting it out for every event we did, getting it out for, new exhibits. That could be one person's job by themselves, just getting it into the newspapers, getting it
Do you
on
want
the
me to-
TV,
Yeah.
The thing that
To move
we
it
did in
around?
Capitol
I
that
can
was
do
real
that if
helpful
you'd
was
like me
get
to
that
do
weekly photograph.
All right, let's do this.
Yeah,
Here's
Oh,
every
yeah, it's
Yeah.
up to
focal point.
you.
Yes.
They're still gonna-
And anything I wanted to add, I went in there.
It's
And then
Yeah.
if there's a news release, so we always get a two-person.
so.
Get my little bits of historic
Yeah,
preservation.
you know, you're saying that was
That,
always the very
yeah, my-
interesting thing.
My
You
first
know,
master's
but
was in historic
but, you know,
preservation,
if that's
so that
part of
was
our
like
goals in trying to do
originally
a
my
public
career goal.
engagement Was
So,
somehow
yeah. So
on our
this is,
web, our
I
website,
guess now my hobby.
And the
have some of those on there.
Was,
Like, who would want to do that?
actually,
running now?
yeah, get
But it's,
education in what we do.
Right.
That was an
So,
MBA.
If we could
I did
get
it
just
during
a
the
link
recession,
to
and I was
things.
like,
Yeah.
not sure
How
which
complicated
year
it is.
am I going to
I
see.
can't do
I don't either.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't speak counties.
Yeah.
Well, I know.
Yeah.
Oh, they won't, but you know.
Yeah. It's, the thing is, if you got 10 ideas of what works, then it's, you know, it's worth
Does any of us
all.
have volunteers?
Yeah.
Yeah, accomplish this goal.
Yeah.
Berkeley.
Sometimes, yeah.
So,
Well, I was thinking of this man who does walking tours of Live Oak. His name, of course, I can't remember.
Norman pointed out.
Right,
Yep.
yes, I met him several years ago.
yeah. And there's other people around too that are doing walking tours. I don't know what Watsonville does.
We had, I think we have 2 walking tours. I did them several years ago.
I wanna lead a walking tour in Washington, through all the alleyways. One side of town to do it.
I like that.
I wanna do a walking tour in Washington,
The alleys.
going through all the alleyways, and one side of town to the other. And what you get to do is peek into everybody's backyard.
You're gonna love that.
So I think
I won't be able to go with you because
Barry
you'll be
to come back.
excited.
Oh,
Okay.
The camera's on, so.
Oh, it is?
Let's go.
Oh, okay. Well, then, we will call this meeting back at
What did you
11:01.
say?
Watch your toes.
So, we were,
So, we've had public comment, maybe in
on,
discussion.
on 9A.
Yeah.
So, then, we're at the point where we're ready to make a motion.
Can I move approval?
Can I, or when did?
I thought you just did it.
What?
No, I did not on this item.
Well, wait, isn't this the, oh, that was the goals. Sorry.
So,
Thank you.
so public comments?
Thank you, Becky Steinbruner from APCOS. I am really encouraged by this. And just, I do want to clarify that the process for changing this is with your commission approving it, and then it would go for any further noticing or something for the public, to let the public know of this change. If it is not publicly noticed, then I would ask that the commission ask the planning department to send letters of information to those property owners who may be affected by this. And I think under government transparency, that's something we should do. But I am very much supportive of this. I really think the City of Santa Monica zoning ordinance is great. And I keep thinking of the house on Valencia in Aptos, the oldest house left in the Heen subdivision that was completely demolished under the guise of partial demolition. So how would this address partial demolition? I also would like to ask that there be added in a requirement that the commission meet on site to inspect and verify the claims of the property owner. I would also like to ask that, I think currently the code has that if there is a demolition permit issued for historic structures, the owner must advertise the structure for salvage. What has historically happened is that shows up in the little fine print legal notices and no one sees it. And I think these structures and what they have in them, the valuable wood and things, could be, even if they are termite ridden, even if the building is falling down, there is still salvageable and very valuable material that local craftsmen, if they knew about it, would be interested in coming and retrieving. To that end, I have asked before that there be developed a list of craftsmen in the county or perhaps the region that would be automatically notified of such demolition permits, or even further in advance, to be given the opportunity to perhaps help renovate some of the damage that makes it either a hazard or too much of an economic hardship. There are people out in the community like Mr. Campbell who tried to talk with the owner of the house on Valencia Street, and they wanted nothing to do with him. And he would have restored it, he would have salvaged, but the owners would not speak with him. So there needs to be something to address that disconnect and the sometimes very anxious to knock down disposition of some of these owners. So I would like to have that list put out and these people automatically notified. Also, a list at any of the major construction supply places like San Lorenzo Lumber, where these types of contractors would go and would see that there is material available and a demolition permit is being considered. And again, I would like to ask that the Mills Act be put forward in this, and concerning specifically the Redmond Hirahara House, I can see that, first of all, that structure is on the National Historic Registry and should be getting much more attention by the owner than it is. And it is my hope that your commission, I'm certainly working hard on it, to help the owner realize that it's not just a derelict building to be in the way, but actually a very rich resource for our community. I can see that that particular property owner would have no difficulty showing that they would lose income by keeping it because of their plans to build very high-scale hotels across the street, and probably they would love to build one there too. So I think that concludes my comments, but I would also, in closing, like to ask that, and this goes along with the Mills Act, that we offer for people to get their property taxes reduced and/or reduced or free building permits for restoration of these wonderful treasures that are fading away. Thank you.
Could I respond to
Thank
that?
you.
About the preservation of artifacts and building materials that you mentioned?
Mhm.
It's already on the books. It's on Historic Resource Preservation Plan application number F. It's already on the books. So it reads provisions to preserve the historic value of the structure by documentation, which would be, maps and pictures, or preservation of artifacts and building materials.
I'm sorry, where is that?
It's under Historic Resource Preservation Plan application,
3F.
and it's 3F.
But again, what happens is that the owners only have to advertise once in any paper of their choosing, any media of their choosing, and it goes unnoticed. I think there needs to be some more clear instruction and requirement on that provision. I also want to point out that in number 6A, it says a professional estimate of the cost. I would like professional defined a little more too. Someone with experience in historic preservation, familiar with the state standards of historic preservation, to really make this meaningful information. and also for 6C in terms of architects, developers, real estate consultants. Experienced in rehabilitation, that's a very broad term too. I would like that clarified a little bit in terms of to what level of rehabilitation. You know, I could say I fixed my doghouse once and I've got experience in rehabilitation, so. Thank you.
Thank you. I have then a question in response to Becky's question. Does the county have a definition when someone comes in and says they're a professional and they provide an estimate? Does the county look to see who they are? You know, are they required to have some kind of certified training, that type of thing? And the same thing with C.
Well, they'd have to be somebody that would be like on the Chris list, right?
Yeah, I
Yes.
think maybe like a qualified, saying qualified historic
There-
preservation professional
Yeah,
or
there you go.
consultant. Because then that then would direct to the list of approved historic preservation consultants by the state. And that's a range of archaeologists, historic architects, architectural historians, historic preservationists. So if we change the wording on A and C to say a qualified historic preservation consultants, then that would,
You got it.
Certified,
qualified.
qualified?
It's called qualified historic preservation consultant, I think, I'm pretty sure. And that's the state list.
Qualified historic preservation.
Consultant.
So under C, would that be added to this list, replace the or other real estate professional?
I would just say, I would say an estimate from a qualified historic preservation consultant
Okay.
as to.
Yeah,
See, the question here though
It said
is,
experienced in rehabilitation, but,
the problem is, that I see, or the challenge, is someone determining the economic feasibility is more of an accounting function than even an architect or a historic preservation consultant. You know what I mean? It's almost like a,
And this is gonna cost money.
of course. Bless you. So that's in my question of leaving it. If you leave it more nebulous, then you could have, a pro demolition real estate consultant come in and say, it's not feasible.
And you would.
And you would.
I know some.
So, maybe it is, on this one, I think that a qualified historic preservation consultant.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because developer is pretty loaded.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there, so is there any other changes or modifications? Or are we ready to make a motion on this?
I would move approval with the modification to 6A and C to change professional to a qualified historic preservation consultant.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I,
You're opposed to it?
well, I'm not sure with the type of people I'm working with that this is gonna work. So I just would like to, what is the word that you use when you don't want to vote?
Abstain.
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 Okay. So we have 4 ayes and 1 abstention.
Thank
And
you very much.
this is passed?
Thank you very
Yeah, this is cool. All right, we're down to 9B, our watch list. And I don't know how long it takes, but I noticed on here that I had one on and I completely forgot about it.
That can happen.
So it's like, oh, so it's like, oh yeah, cool. So on the watch list, let's see. I'm not really quite sure. This is the, what we're doing with this. So this is the template that we're filling out to send in.
To send in.
What list is this?
Well, to send to Annie.
Yeah, well, I think we all were sent the template,
Is this
and it was
it?
just a blank, it's a blank.
Oh, okay.
And then we filled in, I know I filled in the ones that I sent in. Just typing, I just,
Oh, I see this.
Okay.
you just use the template and.
So this is, yeah, we just add on to it as necessary.
So now my understanding and what I have been telling people is that this watch list is in the planning department. So when someone comes in and they say, I live at 201 Playa Boulevard in La Salva Beach, and I want to add a whole nother room to it, and I want to change the windows and make it look a bit more modern. Whoever's handling that application goes to the watch list, checks and says, oh, that's on here as a potential historic, because it is not on the inventory yet. And from there, then they come back and say, we, the planning department, need to do further research to see if it is a historic property, and there needs to be more, care, or you will need to make a presentation to the Historic Resource Commission. What kind of happens?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I entirely know the answer. I know for all proposed building permits that would affect a structure more than 50 years old, they automatically get routed to Annie for review.
Okay, great.
So if one of these were to show up on her desk, she probably would have them, I imagine, get a consultant to do a report to decide if it's really historically significant.
Have a DCR.
Yeah.
And that's
so-
probably our
You know,
on-call historic consultant.
No, they would hire their own. Our on-call person helps Annie review things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But just a little side note, this particular house, 201 Five Boulevard, after I did this, was completely torn down.
What?
And is now being reconstructed, which I'm happy to see. I mean, it
Okay.
is a reconstruction rather than,
Hmm.
and they didn't tear the entire house down. They tore the main part of the house, but they left some of the ancillary buildings. So, and they're putting it back so that the footprint is, it's not exactly the same, but it's
Alright.
better, you know, it's like, well, first I had a heart attack. What the heck is happening? So, it's not a perfect, so much things.
Never perfect.
Things
That's
fall
great.
through the crack. I also wanted to mention, as long as I got your attention, that the Henry Mello House, 32 White Road, Watsonville, I've been watching that, talk about a watch list. I go by it every week and we look, because it had tarps all over it,
Oh,
front and back and the side, and then one whole part of the house, it looked like they were throwing things out the window. I mean, it was just, something was going on.
no. What?
And we went by, a month or so ago, and all finished. It evidently, I don't know if they repaired everything, the
Huh.
tarps are all gone.
Oh, good.
Everything's back, so, and there's cars parked in the driveway. Before I was rude, it was
Yeah.
empty.
Abandoned?
Not abandoned, but like empty, but, so that looks very good. I just wanted to say that.
Good.
Yeah, so. Oh, and I just checked yesterday on the Margarita Road, 105, 115,
120?
120, and they all look exactly the same. So.
May I go back to a problem I'm having? If I'm going, looking at things, and is there anything that I carry to show that I'm official? And I'm taking a picture of your falling down barn? Or am I going to get arrested for trespassing?
You're probably.
You're probably gonna get arrested.
I'm just wondering, because people don't like to have their houses, pictures taken of them unless they've got a house that's got a blue plaque on it or something. If I go up to Bonnie Doon and start taking pictures of historical sites, I don't know, but somebody might come after me with a shotgun.
I kind of wondered the same thing because I had been talking to some people up in the valley that were like third generation. And one of them, her grandfather had built a cabin, turn of the century. And in fact, a friend of mine was renting it. It was this little cabin and it had marks from when she was a child and and all that, and they said definitely they wanted to get it on the inventory, they wanted it preserved, and they says, oh, we can give you lots of other addresses too, and was starting with this and this and this. And I had mentioned to Annie about going and taking photographs. She says, kind of take them from afar.
Yeah.
Don't get right up, don't get right up on the property line there, be taking it up. So that's all I can say is try to be a little discreet and
Use your best.
Yeah, I know, but I think we should work on something I guess Becky said something about sending a note to, that's what is going on, and when they see a person with a badge of some kind, or bandana, whatever, that person is checking on the condition of the house, and it's legal.
Are we really doing that?
I would say, I don't know how you could put together a complete list, because I know I certainly don't know who these people are or where all the homes are. And if you sent it to every single resident 50 years and older in the entire county, that's a huge undertaking of time,
Well,
resources, and money.
You know, and the conversation has been, there's no staff. I mean, no staff time to do. You know, and our time is, you know, a lot of these ideas are really good, but, you know, I don't have limited and unlimited time to give.
Well, I was up there, and I was taking a few pictures, and then I decided I better not. So, but it stops me from showing what the property is like compared to 1995. So I wasn't exactly sure what can be done, but I guess nothing.
I just think, you know, if the law, you obey the law, if it says no trespassing, then don't trespass.
Well, they don't say, they just, you know, I mean, people are always afraid somebody's going to take something from them, and they get anxious, and well, then
Yeah.
that's a problem I'm having. Maybe you can think about it.
Well, initially I would say you probably want to stay within the right of way and not enter onto anybody's property without prior permission.
Well, also, can't you go on, what is that,
Google
Earth?
Earth, as long as it's
Google
not a
Earth, and
public.
you know, just on a computer, and you can blow it up and look at it.
Well, that's a problem.
And then, I don't know, maybe you could take a picture of your computer screen.
Be safer.
Well,
Yeah.
you'll find me in jail someday with that.
We'll be like, we don't know who that is, I'm sorry.
Never heard it. Heard it now.
Mission? What?
You know, I use Google Earth to check things up. And there's some that, you know, you put in, you just go on the computer, you put in the address, and it'll show you who the last time it came up for sale, and it'll show the street, and you can go down the street, and you can actually go all over the county.
So to the commission, to wrap this topic up possibly, do we want to have the watch list also be an ongoing topic to see if there's been any additions?
I think it's on the, it's in our list of goals,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yes.
we'll just keep it.
Okay, so then if it's listed as part of our goals, and we're gonna be going over the goals at each meeting, then we can get a report from Annie if there's been any additions or anything she'd like for us to point out.
Sure.
Any more discussion by the commission? Okay, public comment?
Thank you. Thank you for keeping an eye on these places. I really appreciate it. I wanted to ask the status of the Merriman House. I know Mr. Gibson came and gave quite an extensive talk about the efforts to upgrade that to, I think, an NR5. I think that there are plans for that property to demolish the house because there will be an affordable housing project put there and a medical and dental clinic put there. So I would like to know the status of that project, and maybe Commissioner Merriman, you can check on that. Thank you. I also want to make the commission aware that in conjunction with the proposed SoCal Creek Water District Pure Water SoCal project, that is a project to pipe 11 miles long treated sewage water from the Santa Cruz City Waste Treatment Plant on Bay Street to a location yet to be determined, but either on Chanticleer or in SoCal at their offices. It has been determined in their environmental impact report that there are 18 historic structures that would be threatened by the level of vibration that would happen with the trenchless technology that would come right by those homes. So I would like to make you aware of those. They didn't really disclose them all that much, but there are a number of them. And finally, I would like to ask if anybody is watching over the Heen Apple Barn and the Aptos Village project. I feel like there have been some modifications that are a little bit grander than what I remember seeing on the plans and your commission approving. And I would like to ask that a commissioner go and just check on that and really make sure that the historic preservation efforts as they were agreed upon are being followed. And perhaps a report back at the next meeting.
Thank you.
I worry that it could lose its NR3 status.
Do you know if anyone is doing periodic checks on the Apple Barn?
I do not know if anybody's doing periodic checks, although I know that Annie's very aware of the project and its status.
One of the things I was going to, under Commissioner presentation, not presentations, but I also wanted to ask that we, at our next meeting, get an update on the APOS plan and the project's progress and specifically the interpretive panels. Because I know that we were told that there was a contract with someone in San Jose firm to do those panels. And I'm just wondering if that's still the case or if someone else is going to do it.
Did you say that panels?
Interpretive history, interpretive panels that were going to go around the
Some
outside.
of them are a couple will be in the apple barn. One of them will be at the site of the firehouse. And so before they can get a write-off on the whole project, those have to be done.
Right.
And also I agree that we should get reporting.
I can tell you that for the Marion House that that the applicant, who is Mid-Penn Housing, is hiring a consultant to look at it further and do the staff's request that they, take another gander at it and make sure it's not historical based on.
Because we asked that they contact a consultant to
Yes.
determine if there were errors in the DPR.
Right,
So
that's
that's
right.
happening.
That is happening.
That's good news.
Right. Yes, it's not sure that they're using the county's consultant, which I think was part of the commission's request.
Yeah.
But even if they go with somebody else, as long as they have the appropriate qualifications.
There's some people.
Who's the planner on that project?
I don't know.
I think Mr. Gibson would be very interested. I'll let him know.
I also wonder if there have been any efforts to protect the Redmond House during the storms and stuff. I mean, is there any efforts to preserve it at all?
Not that I'm aware of.
So nothing,
Doesn't mean that there's not something going on by the property owner, but I haven't heard of anything like that.
so if there's a leaky roof, then nobody's over there fixing it.
I'm sure there's a leak.
I don't believe so, but I don't know what's happening with the property owner. I just know that it's not a county staff thing that's going on.
Oh, yes, okay. But could we find out? I mean, I would like to know if the building is being maintained.
So it looks
Well, it's
like
on death row.
what we're asking for is a status report
Yeah.
on the Heen Apple Barn,
No.
on the interior mods that were approved, are they being followed, and the status of the interpretive panels?
No. What we want is an update on the whole Aptos Village plan, historic portion.
Okay,
And the Apple Barn is part of that. But there's also parts that pertain to the Baby Hotel and the interpretive panels in the whole area.
fire
I
historic.
think that building 14, the new structure where the firehouse was, at least they got signs up that they're open for business, so that tells me that they've been signed off.
Yeah, well, that's what we're asking to find out.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're asking for an update on the entire historic Aptos Village plan and the status of the interpretive panels.
And who's doing them? I'm curious about this contract with the San Jose. I think the contract was with Bonnie Bamber.
A special look at the Apple Barn too, huh? A special. I think Becky was saying that the Apple Barn doesn't look like it's been preserved according to our original preservation.
Well, that's what I had said,
Well, we
and
want to
then
know
we're
that, but we
expanding
want to
that
know
Yeah,
to the
the
entire.
whole.
right, but I think a real with a microscopic look at the Apple Barn.
Yeah.
So the interior.
Yeah.
Also a status of the Miriam House and a status on the Redmond House.
Still there.
I just keep remembering years and years ago, the big sign that was out front that said, please help us save it.
Corey Jimenez says she uses that picture that she took of that still for her classes to show what a grassroots effort can do. She was sad to hear that it's not happening anymore,
Yeah.
but being revived is encouraging. I just also wanted to let you know that the Cabrillo Host Lions Club is paying for and installing a second Welcome to Aptos Village sign on the other side, I guess would be the west entrance to the village.
Is it going to say 1851?
I don't know the content. I know that they've been working with Kevin Newhouse, so it will probably be a mirror of the other one that Kevin Newhouse and John Hibble put up by the bridge. And the bridge is continuing to crack. I know it's an historic bridge. I'm quite concerned.
So that brings us to number 10. Any commissioner presentations or informational items other than what was mentioned during the meeting? All right then, we're open for adjournment.
Adjournment?
So moved.
What are we open for? Lunch?
So if someone will make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 11:40. And our first meeting of 2019 is now adjourned.
Right.
I think I
Thank
still
you
got
very much for your good work today on this update for the zone.